Hello, everyone, and welcome to our summer employment and education training series. We're excited to offer these webinars to empower families, students, and professionals with tools and information to support success in school and beyond. Our goal is to provide practical strategies and resources that you could begin to use right away. Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Tammy Sebastian. I am a special education advocate with Disability Rights Ohio. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white woman in my 50s with shoulder length blonde hair. Also wearing a white jacket today, and I'm joining you from my home office. To support accessibility, I just want to make you aware at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A box, bottom right-hand corner, almost to the right-hand corner. And that's what we'll be using today to, if you have questions. The chat we are not using, so please do not use the chat. And you also have the feature right in the middle of your bottom middle of your screen to raise your hand. We also would like to let you know that the session is being recorded. I will monitor the questions throughout and let David and Melissa know if there's any questions. And I think they're also going to hold time at the end, if that's right, Melissa and
Yes,
David, for questions. So with that being said, it is now my pleasure to introduce Melissa Day and David. Oh, I got to practice this.
David Kenninger.
David Kenninger. I always mess it up. So it's my pleasure to introduce them, and they will be presenting on what is CAP. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Melissa, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then I'll pick up.
I am Melissa Day. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white woman in my 40s. I have long blonde hair, and I'm wearing a black shirt today and a headband around my hair.
And I'm David Kenninger. I'm an attorney at Disability Rights Ohio. I'm a 60-year-old white male with long brown hair and a ponytail, and I'm wearing a blue sport coat and a check shirt. So let me get our PowerPoint up here. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Are folks seeing that? Am I sharing yet?
It's not coming up, David.
That's okay. Give me one more second. Come on. There we go. Now are we seeing it?
There it is.
Okay.
Do you want to? Oh, there you go.
There we go. All right. Sorry for the delay there, folks. But yes, our presentation today is what is CAP, and Melissa and I will be talking you through an explanation of what is CAP. And so we've got a roadmap here laid out for you about what we'll be covering. We're going to answer the question, what is the Client Assistance Program? Whoops, see, there it is. CAP is the Client Assistance Program. So you already know that. And in order to find out about CAP or to understand CAP, you need to understand something about vocational rehabilitation services. So we'll be talking about VR services in Ohio that are provided through the agency Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. And you'll learn about where CAP can make a difference in accessing those VR services. And also one of the other aspects of what CAP does is what CAP does to help people who are experiencing employment discrimination or who need a reasonable accommodation at work. So, and actually before we can tell you about CAP, we wanted to tell you a little bit about Disability Rights Ohio. That CAP is part of Disability Rights Ohio, which is Ohio's protection and advocacy system. And Congress created the P&A system in 1975 to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities, and especially those who are living in institutions. And this came about because there was a report done by the investigative reporter Geraldo Rivera in 1972 about the Willowbrook School in New York. And the report showed in very graphic pictures the horrible living conditions of individuals with disabilities who essentially had been warehoused in this so-called school, the Willowbrook School. And so in our presentation, there's a YouTube link where you can see the report. It's about 25 minutes long if you want to, but suffice it to say that the conditions were so horrible that they did inspire Congress to act and create the Protection and Advocacy System, which was a long time in coming. And so Disability Rights Ohio is one of 57 protection and advocacy systems throughout the United States and territories. And CAP is a program that came along and is part of a lot of protection and advocacy systems, but was established much later by the Rehabilitation Act amendments of 1984. So the CAP agency is something that's designated by the governor. The governor has to say, Disability Rights Ohio, I want you to be my CAP agency. It doesn't have to be the same entity designated as the PNA. In many states, it's not. But in 36 territories and states, including Ohio, the entity that carries out the CAP is also the state's Protection and Advocacy Agency. And so DRO, as I said, is the entity designated by the governor to be both the PNA and the CAP. And so a little bit about eligibility for all DRO services. This includes CAP services. This includes all DRO services, which includes CAP services. That to qualify, you need to be a person with a disability. There is no income requirement, and clients are not charged for our services. We receive funding from the federal government in various funding streams, and that funding is designed to enable us to help people with disabilities overcome barriers to living independently, having equal access to public facilities, jobs, and to access vocational rehab services. So, again, this is not just the CAP agency or the CAP part of Disability Rights Ohio, it's DRO in general. Our advocacy is client directed. That means that regardless of who is contacting us to bring our attention to a particular issue for a client, it is the client who guides our representation. So whether it's a parent or a guardian or some other person who might be important in the client's life, it's got to be the client who is informing our advocacy and directing it. All the information that you would provide to us would be confidential. So if you're concerned about revealing something about a disability or something in your particular situation, that you should know that information is kept confidential. Now, obviously, if we're going to represent you in front of an agency, we would need to present some of that information that might be confidential to that agency to get you the services or the assistance that you need. But again, all of this comes with your permission, so that all our advocacy is done on a confidential basis, and anything that's disclosed is done with your permission. And we do both individual and systemic advocacy. So what does that mean? That means that if you call us up and say you're having difficulty getting a particular service, from OOD, and we contact OOD and try to work things out, that's individual advocacy. Systemic advocacy might be where OOD has adopted a particular policy that we think is affecting a whole range of clients in a adverse way, and so we might contact them and ask them to change the policy or advocate for them to do something different. Of course, this applies, again, not just to the CAP work that we do, but to all the work that DRO does. So it could be a policy regarding voting, or it could be a policy regarding education, or some other particular issue that affects a lot of people with disabilities around Ohio. And we do advocacy on a systemic basis in those situations. Oops. So CAP has a threefold purpose, and I will walk you through those now. First one, as you might have understood from my prior descriptions, is to provide information to individuals with disabilities in Ohio about the vocational rehab services available. So again, services that you would access through OOD, and about other services funded under the Rehabilitation Act, such as independent living services that you might get through Center for Independent Living in your area. In addition to providing information, we also assist and advocate for individuals applying for or receiving voc rehab services or other services funded under the Rehab Act. Again, those independent living services that might come through the CIL. So, not only are we providing you with information about where to get the services, but when you go and apply for the services, if there's some hitch or miscommunication or problem getting support for the services that you think you need, you can come to DRO, to the CAP program, and we can help you advocate for those. Sometimes we'll spend some effort, helping you to teaching you to advocate for yourself, providing you the information that you need to do self-advocacy. But the idea is that we support individuals getting those services from Voc Rehab or the Centers for Independent Living. And the third part of what the CAP does, which I alluded to earlier, is to provide information to individuals with disabilities about their rights under Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Title I is the part of the ADA that deals with employment discrimination and reasonable accommodations. So if you are in an employment situation and there's an issue about your disability that and something that your employer is doing that's creating a barrier to you being able to do the essential functions of your job, we can help you work with the employer to figure out how that disability can be accommodated so that you can continue to do that work. So I've been talking about VR services. A little bit of background. Again, each state and territory of the United States has a public vocational rehab system. Vocational rehabilitation is part of the broader workforce investment system. As I said, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities is the state agency that administers the state Voc Rehab program in Ohio. And they receive funding from the federal government, which is matched with some state funding. And the federal share is generally around 70 to 80% of the budget, and the state share is about 20 to 30%. So it's a good deal for Ohio to put up the 20 to 30% in order to receive the much larger share of federal funding that they can use to support vocational rehab services, training, education, job supports, job training, job development, all those kinds of things that OOD might do. And it's important to think about vocational rehab services and how the CAP program fits together with those services. That the purpose of the VR program is to help individuals with disabilities become employed and economically self-sufficient. And so the goal of the VR program is to help individuals with disabilities prepare for, secure, retain, advance in, or regain employment. And each of those is an important piece, right? So at every stage of sort of the employment process, or as you might be growing into employment or transitioning into employment from school. So you're preparing for employment. So you're getting some education or training, perhaps some pre-employment transition services. You're learning to secure employment. So how do you do a job interview? How do you put together a resume? What are some soft skills that will make you a good person to have around an office or a workplace? To retain employment. Again, what are some of the soft skills that make you a good person to have around the workplace? What accommodations might you need? How can you advocate for yourself to get those accommodations? Advance in. What skills might you need to get a better job at where you're employed? You're employed, things are going along great, but you know that you have a supervisor, and that supervisor might have a supervisor. And perhaps they have some credential or skill or other education that you don't have, but if you got it, you could become eligible to advance, to be promoted in your job and get a better job, or to regain employment. Maybe you've been out of the workforce for a little while, or maybe you lost a job because it just wasn't a good fit. They weren't able to accommodate your disability in the place where you were working, and so you want to try something different. VR should be able to help you. OOD should be able to provide you with the kind of assistance, whether it's assistive technology or additional skill training or job development to help you find another job if you are no longer employed. So all of those kinds of things are part of the goals of the VR program. And again, thinking about the philosophy, why the VR program exists, why the CAP program exists to help people access those services. The foundation of the VR program is the core principle that individuals with disabilities, including those with the most significant disabilities, are capable of high quality, competitive, integrated employment when they're provided with the necessary services and supports. Everyone can work when provided with the necessary services and supports, and we want to make sure the DRO and the CAP program that they get those services and supports so that they can work. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa now to talk some more specifics about how the CAP program works, how we can help you, and how those Voc Rehab services can be delivered by OOD, and how we can provide assistance through the CAP program. Go ahead, Melissa.
Thank you, David. So when OOD can help is first is when an individual is eligible for services. And so it starts out as early as age 14. Students can apply for services. And it's when an individual has a disability, they'll gather all your medical information. So you wouldn't have to do that. You just sign a consent form. And then it's really when the disability creates a barrier. It's difficult for the individual to find competitive employment, and the individual needs the services of OOD, as they were saying, to either prepare for a job, find a job, or just even keep their job to help with getting accommodations. And then lastly, it's when the individual can benefit from those OOD services. Next slide. And so with independent living services, those are designed to help individuals with disabilities live independently in their communities. So these services include, we provide information and referral. They provide independent living training, peer counseling, which the benefits of peer counseling include empowerment, emotional support, and guidance from somebody who's actually living with a similar disability that the individual is. And then also, they provide individual and systemic advocacy. So, systemic advocacy means such as legislative advocacy, lobbying for passage of disability rights within the state, public policy reform, such as improving Medicaid and services for people with disability, and also accessibility improvements, so pressuring local governments to install curb cuts and accessible pedestrian signs. And then also advocating for accessible transportation. And then also servicing, helping people move into the community from institutions. Next slide. So in terms of helping people with moving from institutions, or to help them remain in their home instead of moving into an institution. So they assist, often helping them find or getting them hooked up with Ohio Home Care Waiver, which provides nursing care and personal care assistance, and also housekeeping. And they also help with people transitioning from school to post-secondary education, which just means referring individuals to OOD like we would. Next slide. And so the type of work we do includes individual and systemic representation. An example of individual representation may be, depending on the case, provide legal representation to somebody appealing a denial of services from OOD. And then an example of systemic representation includes collaborating with OOD to review and improve policies and procedure, serving on the State Rehabilitation Council, which is, I believe it's the Ohio Council, and then advocating for changes in how services are delivered and addressing recurring issues, and provide training to VR staff. We're going to be doing a training to them in September, and reviewing and commenting on state plans for VR. So just making sure and double checking that everything is as it should be. And then, but systemic advocacy does not allow the CAP to bring a class action suit against the VR agency. And that is really specific in the statute of 29 U.S.C. 732. But the Protection and Advocacy Agency, under that statute, they can bring class action against VR. And we did that prior to a few years ago. So next slide. And then, so the type of work also includes, we'll provide information and referral if we really can't help an individual with specific matter. We always try to provide the individual with at least some direction of where they can find help. And then short-term assistance might just be finding out who the counselor is, or and then we do help with the administrative hearing process. So OOD has a two-step process, and it's an informal and then a fair hearing. And then sometimes CAP can file a litigation suit. Sometimes we have to, if we don't win at the administrative hearing process, we have to file a lawsuit in federal court, and we've done that before. And so the scope really depends on the issue or the employment discrimination. It's very individualized. And we can also advocate for related claims, such as post-secondary education, meaning college, somebody's in college, they're needing accommodations. Also, trouble with the employment, they're needing a job coach. We can, provide brief advice regarding those types of issues that really impact VR services. Say an individual has a case with OOD and just not getting the right accommodations or services from their provider. And then we also do a lot of outreach to tell people about the CAP program. We travel the state of Ohio, so we service all of Ohio, and we'll go to transition fairs at schools, or we'll be at the Synergy Conference coming up in October. We'll have a table and provide information, and then, like we said, we provide trainings, and then we will look over OOD's policies and procedures and then comment on those to making sure they're in line with federal law. Next slide. And, some examples of CAP include informing individuals about OOD's VR services. And so if they've been turned down for VR services, they weren't found eligible, we get their case file and look and investigate. And then if the individual has concerns about their vocational rehabilitation counselor, there's a conflict that needs resolved. Or just if they're not satisfied with the VR process that they are receiving and they have questions. Like if they've received a decision that they don't like about a service, or even that they don't like that their case is being closed. We can come alongside the individual to investigate and try to resolve those conflicts. And then just other problems, anything. If an individual is receiving OOD services, they just don't feel right, they can call us. And then we provide, the information about independent living services within the Centers for Independent Living. And I forgot to mention that there are 12 Centers for Independent Living around the state of Ohio, and can direct them in applying or even if they're having some trouble with the independent living services, we can provide help with that. Next slide. We can also inform individuals about their rights under Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that just means under Title I, it's talking about employment discrimination, how to make reasonable accommodations, and how to accommodation requests. And then if they feel that they've been discriminated, where can an individual file a complaint? How to go about that. Next slide. So when it comes to helping students with transition from high school to community, we help students and their families by discussing the importance of transition planning, which includes students participating in their individual education plan, IPE meetings, and working in the community before students leave school. We explain transition services OOD provides, which includes pre-ETS, and pre-ETS just means pre-employment transition services. Some examples of pre-ETS are job exploration counseling, and that means what careers, career interest inventories, and sometimes they do assessments and they discuss on-demand occupations, and then also work-based learning experiences. So an individual, prior to getting a job, they can get paid or unpaid internships. They can do job shadowing, volunteering, and apprenticeships. OOD has a summer youth work experience program that the individual can do. And then another one is counseling on post-secondary education. And this involves touring college campuses and helping with college applications or financial aid or information on disability services and finding dual enrollment employment programs within the college. And then fourth is workplace readiness training. So that means soft skills training, communication, teamwork, time management, financial literacy. It's really getting that person ready for employment. And then lastly is instruction in self-advocacy. So learning about their disability rights and how to participate in an IEP meeting. Next slide. Oh, and advocating for appropriate services for OOD to get their job goal. And then how to get transition services throughout their state. Next slide. And then here's how to get help from OOD. No. Sorry, Disability Rights Ohio and CAP. And here's our phone number. It's 1-800-282-9181. And for intake form, we've got a website, or you can just call and or write to us. Next slide. And so, DRR staff, so before you get to David and I, we have intake specialists who receive the calls and then provide information and referral if the situation does not amount to getting to David and I or a different staff member. And then we have attorneys and advocates. I'm an advocate. David is an attorney. And we provide services, all types of services to people with disabilities. And then we also have a policy and communication team, and they educate Ohioans and policymakers about what our agency does, and to make sure that they can refer individuals to us, and they that they know disability rights exist. Believe it or not, some legislatures just don't know about disability rights in general, and so we advocate for those. Next slide. And we have a great, excellent resource center, which provides information and support and learning about their rights. So under our website, there's a section called Resource Center, and it's divided into different topics. So we have an employment topic, there's a special education topic, then there's a specific topic called for transition services. And in each topic, there is a list of topics that you can click on, and you can print them off and save them and reuse them all the time. And our website is www.disabilityrightsohio.org/resource center. And we have an excellent guide to VR services in Ohio. And that's a really long link, and it will be recorded. And then, you know, like I said, we have special education and transition services, but also I think developmental disabilities, you know, dealing with the county board and Medicaid. So all sorts of good stuff on there. Next slide. And then we are on social media as well. So please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And you can even join our email list to see what we're doing and good advocacy reports and things like that. Next slide. And for, you know, questions, if you have an issue, you can contact David and I. And here's our address. And most of us work from home. So I wouldn't advise driving down to the office, but definitely call first or check out the website. So next slide.
Right.
Is there any questions?
So I think we've had a really attentive audience because there are no questions right now. No, I do not see any. You know, Melissa and David, I was actually thinking of a few things while you were speaking too, because obviously being in this, you know, in the education team, on the education team, there's overlap, right, with CAP. And a lot of times I think what we see, and I was just wondering if you had any tips or, you know, anything you want to say around a lot of times in the IEP meetings, transition age youth, a lot of times the families don't even know about OOD or even if they exist and what they do. So and or knowing what they do and what they have to provide. So I was just wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, you know, one thing parents don't realize is that they can request, I believe that there's a transition coordinator or, you know, at IEP meetings and things like that. And you can request OOD come to IEP meetings, and they can bring an application right to the IEP meeting. And there is a lot of overlap. So a lot of times schools, it's the school that provides services. So sometimes the school is designated to provide work experiences while they're in school. But if something doesn't kind of match, OOD can come alongside and try to provide other services such as non-employment. It's really individualized, in terms of what OOD can provide. So if you don't know what services, transition services OOD can provide, they can always call us before applying. Sometimes we can help the individual just apply and refer them to OOD. And then so we can come alongside from the start as a team member. David, you have anything else?
I mean, just a couple of things. I mean, OOD actually has a decent website with information for students who are transitioning. So if you know about OOD, you can definitely just, start on the website and look at what services they might have available. And if you are working with OOD, be sure to, ask a counselor to come to your IEP meeting or to be part of, your transition process. And again, there are the pre-ETS services that Melissa mentioned and described that you can get whether or not you have an open case at Voc Rehab. So if you, want those self-advocacy services or career, post-secondary education counseling or work experience. Those are all things you can go to VR and ask them to provide to you. And, they're required to provide them. I mean, there's a percentage of their budget that's supposed to be allocated to pre-ETS services. So they're required to spend the money. So ask them to spend it.
One thing I forgot to mention, alongside OOD's website, OOD's website is just ood.ohio.gov.
Thank you.
And if a student doesn't know kind of what job they want to go in, that's what those pre-ET services are really help the student determine what would be a good fit for them. And if it's doesn't come under pre-employment services, OOD has their own assessments. And so they can do vocational evaluation or career exploration. Like I mentioned, the job shadowing. And the job goals should really be geared towards what the individual is interested in. So if VR counselor denies an employment goal, call us and we can advocate for that goal. And so there's lots CAP can do and lots of OOD can do to help students.
Right.
That's great information. Thank you guys so much. I think that's very helpful too, what you shared, because if the student is eligible, that could really, really help support those transition goals, and, really help with, things that maybe necessarily the school are not focusing on. So thank you. Look, we do have one.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead and read it?
Yeah.
So it says, can you speak a little to the transition from high school support from OOD to adult services? It can feel like there is a disconnect and feels like starting all over. Is that common?
So the connection from high school to the community and OOD, it would be if OOD says, well, they're too young, that's completely not right. And I would say sometimes a lot of counselors aren't just aware of all the services that are available to individuals, to students. And what is it? Say the question again.
Oh, it was, can you speak a little to the transition from high school support from OOD to adult services? So what does that look like? What's the difference between what they provide in high school to adult services? And it says, they feel like there's a disconnect and it feels like you're starting all over. They want to know if that's common.
It shouldn't start all over. It should be kind of like a smooth process. It's so individualized. I would say call us, but when it comes to say for example, career training, okay? Or college. The individual usually is an adult, 18, and they've graduated. So if they're in extended, they've deferred their diploma. I don't think OOD would be able to, correct me if I'm wrong, David, really provide career training. So it just depends on, if they're 18, OOD is going to treat them like an adult. So I would say call us and we can talk through what you think that disconnect might be. And that would help us know how to provide, advocacy between that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think there are a few potential issues, going on at the same time here. First of all, again, to make a pitch for the pre-ed services, because I think those can kind of help smooth the transition, that they can help you figure out, is post-secondary education for me? Where might I go? Do I want a different kind of training? Can I try out some jobs to see, what exactly do I want to do in terms of career and occupation? So, using some of those services, I think, can help smooth the transition. But it's true, there are, a bunch of different things going on. As Melissa mentioned, the student is turning 18, and so they become sort of the adult and the captain of their own ship, so to speak, in terms of deciding, what path they want to take, what career they want to pursue, what services they want to get, how they want to interact with OOD. And that's something that they have to get used to sort of doing their own advocacy, and a parent or guardian might have to get used to sort of stepping back and understanding that it's the individual, now that they've turned 18, who bears the responsibility for making some of those choices. And then if the student does go on to to college or some form of post-secondary education, the services they need to be successful in the school might be provided by the school and not by OOD, and there needs to be coordination between the two there. OOD now has college to careers representatives on most of the campuses in Ohio, and so there is an effort there to smooth the transition from maybe you're getting OOD services, you got the pre-ed services, or you're getting some OOD services, but now OOD is only going to provide part of what you need, and you need to get the rest of that from the college. Well, again, there needs to be coordination there. And yeah, I mean, if you're, if things have been going well in high school or going well with OOD, and then you're going to college and you have a third party to deal with, it can be a little bit like starting over, because you're going to need to make them aware of what your needs are. And so, some of this is unavoidable, but there are sort of systems in place to try to help those transitions happen. And I think part of it is just recognizing that there are these different things going on, and different entities getting involved at that point in the child's life, which is why, again, the pre-ed services and thinking about transition, starting at age 14 are so important.
Read, David. Well, thank you. We do not have any more questions. Just want to let everyone know if something does come up, they did have their information there. You can always come through the intake. If something comes up after, if you have questions, you can definitely reach out.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you, David and Melissa, for the presentation today. It was great. Thank you all for joining us today for this session. We hope that you found information that was helpful, and that you're leaving with some practical tools and resources and insights. We also want to remind you that this is being recorded. It will be. Our communication team has done a really good job of getting them posted right away to our website. And I think we also put some of the information that you spoke about with the website in the chat. So appreciate that. And then just want to make sure that everybody remembers to come back next week. Next week, I will be presenting on dispute resolution in the special education process, and that will be at noon. And then our last in the series will be September 9th. And I think we're going to have Melissa back again, right? I think you win for the most presentations, Melissa. She'll be back on September 9th, doing Social Security for transition aged youth. So again, thank you for coming today. And be sure to check out the recording and share out those resources as well. With that being said, take care. Bye-bye.